Hello, and good morning to you. Welcome to Christ Over Coffee. My name is Andrew Dixon, and I would like to welcome you to this very special episode. And why is it so special? Because this is season 4 of Christ Over Coffee. You know, let me set my cup down. There are going to be so many new things this year. We hope to do more in-person videos. We have new equipment like this microphone. I'm gonna hold it today because I don't have the proper shirt for it, but there's an even more special part of this season. We're going to be digging a lot deeper into what is called the call. That is what we're going to be talking about a lot. That's going to be our series focus this year. And Sister Rosalia is going to talk a little bit more in depth about what the call really means and where we're trying to go with it here in season 4. And so, without further ado, let's get to it.
Good morning to you, Andrew, and to all of our friends who are with us today. I'm looking forward to meeting new friends and hearing from the faithful viewers of our broadcast, Christ Over Coffee. And I must tell you how much I appreciate every like, comment, share, and every moment you take to tell your friends about our story. I'm very happy and excited to start this new season on the topic, the call. What does it mean when we are talking about our calling or vocation in life? Who is calling? Who is listening, perceiving, and answering? How can we discover when God is calling? Questions, puzzling thoughts, and undivine yearnings might stir in us. How am I supposed to recognize, engage, and even answer to this call? And numerous other thoughts we might have. But don't worry, you will find some answers by traveling along with us. Today, we welcome our special guest who will share her amazing journey of service to God's people. She will help us with her story and what that call or invitation meant to her as we kick off this episode 1. For that, I will let Andrew introduce her to you for more information. Back to you, Andrew.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sister Rosalia. And you're right. We are very excited to introduce for the very first time a very, very special person to all of us here at Christ Over Coffee. I'm speaking of Miss Megan Mio. Megan is the director of the Global Mission Office for the Society of the Propagation of the Faith at the Archdiocese of Chicago. And we are so excited to have you on this morning, Megan. And without further ado, good morning and welcome to Christ Over Coffee.
I hope it's okay I'm drinking tea.
No, we don't discriminate. You know, if you don't like coffee, you're welcome to drink tea while you're listening or watching the show or even being interviewed. It's totally fine. Today, we have just 3 questions for you. When we look at your position within the Archdiocese, it's something that Sister Rosalia and I find very intriguing. When you say the Global Mission Office, right? It seems like it's a title that has a lot to do with a lot of different things, but particularly mission, right? And we wonder just how fascinating and just the different things that can happen on a day-to-day schedule. And so we want to give you the opportunity to share with the audience exactly how you came to become an employee there at the Archdiocese of Chicago. And were you always in the current position that you're in? And if not, how did your tenure begin? And please explain to us a little more deeply your current role.
No, I have not always been in this position, that's for sure. And I have to say, just as you said, it's not something I ever foresaw that I would ever be doing this work either. I didn't even know this job existed, as I'm sure many people don't know this kind of work exists out in the world, so that you would aspire to it. Just a quick little background about me. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit in Michigan, and I went to Catholic schools. And I didn't know what I wanted to be, but ultimately in my college experience, I started to really get serious about maybe I want to study theology and ministry. Like, this is just something I'm really interested in. Took many years of those planting of seeds of my teachers in Catholic school to make that happen. And I wound up coming to Chicago because I came here for my master's program. I achieved a Master of Divinity, and during that time I interned at a Catholic parish here in the city, Notre Dame Parish. I just fell in love with ministry. It took that experience, that kind of day-to-day working at a parish, to really make me excited. I fell in love with liturgy. I fell in love with working with the community and thinking and reflecting on these bigger, deeper questions. And it was during that time that I met the previous director to this office, Sister Madge Karecki. Some people might know her, well-known mission theologian. God rest her soul. But she was attending church there, and I told her, I'm thinking maybe about something different. And she says, oh, we've got an opening in my office. So I thought, well, I've never even heard of this. I don't know what this work is. I'd be very curious to learn more. And it one thing led to another. So she hired me in 2013 as the associate director of the mission office. It was the Office for Mission Education at the time. And I was a mission educator. That was my primary responsibility. I laugh about it because now I do lots of things in addition to that. But so that was 10 years ago now. I learned so much since that time. I have had a number of mission experiences, short-term mission experiences since that time too. Today, I am the director of what we call the Global Mission Office now. I work with one other part-time person who's our bookkeeper, Irene Acevedo Gonzalez, and I am so grateful for her. So my job today is many things. Probably our office is best known for coordinating the Missionary Cooperation Plan, which I know the Holy Spirit Missionary Sisters are well aware of. They've participated many, many times in our appeals. Visiting parishes, we coordinate those missionary speakers, we make sure everything is documented, we process the funds, we communicate out with our parishes, coordinate with them, that they have a good experience of this visiting missionary. That is a big job, I'll be honest with you, because we have about 200 parishes participating. And in the last 2 years, we've had between 75 and 80 different missionary groups making those visits. And so just keeping all that straight, it's a lot of work. I'm also the coordinator of the Pontifical Mission Societies. This is an international mission associations. There's 4 societies. And the Society for the Propagation of the Faith, the Missionary Childhood Association, the Society of St. Peter Apostle, and the Missionary Union. And each of those societies has specific areas of interest around mission, engaging people in mission in different levels. And our biggest kind of program around that is World Mission Sunday, which we celebrate in October. And so it's our job as the office to coordinate all that, put out information, educate people, and of course processing the donations and sending them off. I do visit occasionally schools and parishes to talk with groups, help lead prayer, lead opportunities for reflection and learning, engaging people in mission in different levels. I've got to meet some parish projects and things that people are doing in the local level and support them in that. And of course, one of the great ways that I teach and educate adults is through our monthly program, Mission Matters, which we'll be talking, I think, a little bit more about. But we can kind of showcase and tell some stories about the missions through that method, as well as, of course, phone calls and emails all year round from parishes and other organizations to try and help people understand how best that they can support mission on the global level. And so, it's a lot. It's a lot of things to juggle. And of course, the other thing is that I've gotten to know some of our missionary partners here. They're local. Chicagoland is just full of amazing connections around the world. So we try to keep track of what's going on around and about, and keep in touch with our missionary partners, and what's, how we can work together, how we can support one another throughout the year as well in the work of global mission. So it's a lot, but I love it. It's wonderful. It's a lot of wonderful people that I've gotten to know.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing, amazing share. And it ties so perfectly into where we want to go next, because as I said, you being the director of the Global Mission Office, it's actually pretty cool that the show that I know you from is entitled Mission Matters, right? As the host of Mission Matters, a radio broadcast that can be seen on both Facebook and YouTube, we have such an amazing plethora of guests that we have on a year-to-year basis, right? And so we understand how that can be when you're interviewing people and things can happen that are so unexpected. So we wanted to know, would you mind sharing with us what were some of the more surprisingly intriguing interviews that you all have had so far?
I appreciate you asking this question, because it forced me to go back over the history of our shows. I was just kind of walking down memory lane a little bit, because all of our shows, we have shows on YouTube since 2021, but prior to that, recordings are on the Archdiocese website. And so there's little summaries of all the discussions on there. And I just was going back all the way back to almost, back to 2018. I've been the host of Mission Matters since, I think, 2014. So it's been a few years. And there's been a lot of shows. We do it once a month. And it really, things came back to me. At first I thought, well, I don't know, it's just a wave of interviews. But when I really looked at some of those, the memories came back. There's a few that have stuck out in my mind over the years. Mission Matters, we used to, I'll admit, it still says it on the website. We used to call it Mission Matters Live, but I'm afraid it's a bit of a misnomer, because it's never live. It's recorded, just so you know. But so we call it Mission Matters now. But it's a program, really, it was there prior to my time. And there's a number of other archdiocesan ministries that also have programs like ours. Some 30 minutes, some hour long, including like Catholic Charities and Vocations and Human Dignity and Solidarity, our evangelization office. It's just another way, I think, to do this, offer education formation for adults. And the fact that we've been doing these videos now, it's not just an audio recording. It's also a podcast, by the way, on Catholic Chicago. But is that it's more accessible. People can listen while they're doing other things. They could watch it as a real video. And it's just, as long as you have an internet connection, you can connect. And actually, that's great for me too, because I've got guests and contacts for our office that are around the world, around the country, so people can listen to it from wherever. Anyway, it's really meant to be promoting that spirit of mission, educating, forming people. I always kind of think about our listeners, whoever they may be out there locally or more broadly, are people who don't know that much about mission, and who are kind of curious, like, what is the church doing? What does it mean to have a spirit of mission? And also, those who might be discerning that vocation to missionary life. So we really try on the show to have representation of all the different forms that mission can take. We've had medical missions, we've had missionary work that's more just presence-based, some that's peace-building, some that are more economic in terms of helping communities develop, some that are real basic, we call it like primary evangelization, going into places where people do not know who Jesus Christ is. I remember one show we did have back in 2021, we featured a priest who's originally from India, who was living, I think, in New Jersey at the time, and we'd gotten to know him through the mission appeals. But he had a compelling story to talk about COVID and how it had impacted him personally and his family and friends, his home community back in India. At the time, India was having their terrible third wave, which was just awful in the news. We were hearing about it, so we wanted to hear one person's story about that. We also had a sister who had been on mission in Sudan, speaking about Sudan. And honestly, I learned a lot just from that show when Pope Francis was visiting there earlier this year. He visited, I think, in January, February this year. And I just remember thinking, I don't know that much about, I'll freely admit, I may be the director of the Global Mission Office, but there's so many different stories and histories and cultures around the world. There's a lot that I don't know. And having her kind of explain and talk through recent events and the kind of struggles and conflicts that have taken place in Sudan was really in the work of the church and all of that. I would say that I've had some kind of experiences with guests where, like you said, something surprising happened, something I didn't really expect. There've been a couple like little things. At one point we had two seminarians who were studying here at our diocesan seminary in Mundelein, who are both from Uganda. And when I first met them, I discovered this was their first time in the U.S. They had never visited anywhere in the U.S. before. And I said, well, we got to have you on the radio. This is going to be great. We were going to be sponsoring them in some way. And so we had them on the show, and I asked them at one point, we talked about a lot of different things. And they talked about, well, once we finish our education, we return to our home diocese in Uganda. We're going to have a lot of work to do, and they're going to expect a lot from us because we studied in the U.S. Then I said, well, now since this is your first time here, what's the most surprising thing? And I just thought, we're going to get a really honest answer from these guys about American culture or, the school system or something. And they said, what is it that's interesting or surprising to you about American culture? And they said, the weather. The weather. And that we talk about it all the time. They thought that was so strange because they said, well, the weather doesn't change that much and it's pretty predictable back home. So the fact that we're constantly saying, can you believe how cold it is? Can you believe how hot and the rain? They just thought that was really crazy about American culture. Anyway, that one has stayed with me. I've told that story many times. Any kind of audio, including podcast, media, it's perfect for storytelling, and the more you can kind of engage people in, let me tell you about myself and make it as authentic as possible, make it personal. You can kind of draw people in a way. And I think when it comes to missionaries, that's what we're the best at, that missionaries are really want to share and are personally invested so much in everything that they do. So I've had those kinds of funny experiences. The other things that have happened, I've had some kind of eye-opening experiences too. There was a young man last year I interviewed who was at the time a seminarian in Ukraine. He was from Chicago. He's a Mexican-American young man and felt this calling and had been studying in Ukraine. He visited for a period of time to visit family, and he was going back. And now he has since been ordained, in fact, and is ministering in this area of Ukraine, Vinnytsia. And I remember telling him, how is your mom letting you return? It was just so humbling to hear him talk about this calling and that, this is where God wants him. And he just talked about it very calmly and very confidently. And those kinds of interviews, I was like, I got to get your story on the radio, because I had met him through one of our pastors. Like some of these stories they open your eyes to the realities. But they're people, they're so human in the way that they talk about these things and they've done amazing things, but they're so I just did, wherever God was coming. Anyway, the missionaries just can really push you. Feel like I got to do more with my life, if I'm hearing all these amazing stories. I'm very happy to be the connector and very happy to be the one to share their stories with a wider audience through Mission Matters. But I also do feel like, you get exposed to these amazing stories. It really does kind of make you think about everything that I've accomplished in my own life too. I'm motivated to do more. But yeah, I've had a lot of great shows. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Megan, before we close today, I just want to say on behalf of Sister Rosalia and I, thank you so much for joining us today. We so deeply believe in the title of your broadcast. Mission truly does matter. From listening to the stories that I've heard on you all shows so far, mission means something different to each and every missionary. None of the stories are exactly the same. And so this last question, we want to put the focus on you. What does mission mean to you? And how would you want to encourage the missionaries that may be watching today and those who are seeking whether God is calling them to religious life?
Definitely mission matters to me. I would say mission is like one of those things. It's huge. It's God's mission. It's the church's mission, and we're participating in it. And so it feels like something really exciting, I think, personally, I believe, to be part of, to say I'm part of this huge movement. I've learned a lot in my job in the last 10 years working here of what the church is doing on the global scale. And it does give me hope. It does make me feel like we are a huge force for good around the world in places that no one else will go to. Catholic missionaries are there, and they are providing these basic needs that people have, supporting human dignity, encouraging growth, especially of the most vulnerable, children and women and people with disabilities. The church is doing so much good, and it makes me proud to be Catholic, to be part of that big mission, and then to do my part, whatever it may be, here in the local setting here in Chicago. But mission is also very personal. We are all called to something very unique in our role and where our gifts will fit in, and our skills and our experiences, and how we can touch hearts on Christ's behalf, inspired by the Spirit. And so mission is what motivates me. It's what inspires me and keeps me going. I said, it's exciting. I've always been interested in kind of intercultural opportunities for exchange, and it's not easy. It is not. I'm sure you do know. It is not easy to have people from very, very different perspectives and languages and experiences coming together. But it's exciting, because when the breakthroughs come, we come to know God a little bit more intimately through those kinds of experiences. And of course, being a missionary disciple, I'm constantly in transformation, working toward a closer relationship with Jesus, and being a missionary, I think, is probably the greatest way. Going outside of my comfort zone, crossing a cultural or contextual barrier of any kind. It doesn't mean going far away necessarily. It will help you grow in your relationship with Jesus. It will help you grow in your own missionary identity. For anybody who's considering this vocation, I say, listen, pause, stop, and listen to what God has to say. Talk with others in your life. Do your research. Think about what you think you might want to do. Learn a little bit more about it. I always feel like, pausing, going on retreat, having those opportunities to speak with others who are involved in mission in different ways, different vocations, it can really, if you can connect with people's sharing or connect with something I shared today, I think that maybe there is a call in there for you individually. This is an opportunity, I like to say, to take a risk for Jesus, just try something new, try something that you never thought you would ever do. I shared that story about one of the guests I had on our show who said, I never thought that I would be involved in this kind of work, but with God, all things are possible. And so if you open your heart and your mind to that possible calling and connect with others, mission is one of the greatest gifts. And I love being a part of it. So thank you.
What an amazing, amazing episode here today. Thanks again, Megan, for joining us this morning. And if this is your first time listening to the broadcast today, and you feel like God is calling you to religious life, we hope that you would give us a call today at 847-441-0126. Also, we hope that you would visit our website where you can get even more information about the Holy Spirit Missionary System. We can be found online at www.SSpS.org. SSpS-USA.org. And we encourage you to visit us on social media as well. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can follow us at these various locations down below. And all we ask is that you would like, comment, and share the wonderful posts of encouragement that we send out each and every week. And you can also keep up with what the sisters are doing here at the U.S. province as well. We love you and we thank you so much for joining us here today. And as we look forward to what beautiful things season 4 will bring, we thank God for this wonderful opportunity. And we thank you so much for continuing to partner with us. And until next time, remember, we're going to be walking this life one sip at a time. Thank you all so much for joining us. And may God bless you and your families. Take care, and may you have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.